Hello and welcome to another series of our popular webinar, which is Invest Nest. Today's topic is going to be on two hot businesses with trends under discussion. My name is Samta. I will be your moderator for today's event, and on behalf of Kalkine Media, I'm pleased to welcome our esteemed speaker from the leadership team of the top ASX listed players, K2Fly and Citigold Corporation, and our refined and inquisitive audience of potential investors. Now, market swings are keeping the investors on their toes amid economic rebound and bond yield mania. The value versus growth stock debate is never ending, but recent advances of value companies are signaling a significant tide change. Now, given the current value versus growth debate, insights from the industry experts can be valuable. Before we start the session, let me inform you that this webinar is for informational purpose only, and it is not a solicitation or recommendation to buy, sell, or hold the stocks of the company or the companies or engage in any investment activity under discussion. We are neither licensed nor qualified to provide investment advice through this platform. Speaker on board today, who is Mr. Mark J Lynch. He's the Executive Chairman of Gold Player Citigold Corporation. Now, Mr. Lynch is currently a fellow of Australian Institute of Company Directors and a member of their Middle East Advisory Committee. He has previously been a director of the peak body Queensland Resources Council. His international experience includes innovation, focus venturing deep underground into numerous mines and civil projects around the world to understand firsthand the diversity of underground challenges and opportunities. Welcome to Invest Nest, Mr. Mark Lynch. And so please go ahead with your business presentation. The stage is all yours.
Thank you very much, Samta. And I'm looking forward to spending 10 to 15 minutes with your audience. I'm with Citigold Corporation, and our sole product is gold. And we've explored and defined a very large gold deposit in North Queensland. So first I'll just take you through a little brief profile. We're an ASX listed company. We have about 2.7 billion shares on issue. That's a fair few. The top 5 shareholders hold about 30% of the company. Market cap's a very modest 33 million at the current time. And we have audited net assets of $102 million. Myself, Executive Chairman, Samta has updated us. Greg Harding, our CFO, Dr. Sabas Chaya on the board also. He is a metallurgical whiz and will be very useful for our new modern processing plant we'll be building. Mr. Foley is a barrister and legal advisor on the board. This is more the active team. Mr. Ford and Mr. Towsey both have tremendous long experience and know our gold field intimately. Jeff Brown, project manager, Noel Nan, company secretary, looks after all our compliance work. And then Dr. Richards, a whiz at not only the drilling, but also the geophysics. And Mr. Vigili has a background also in robotics. So our location up in North Queensland, we're about 130 kilometres from the east coast and at the town of Charters Towers. So one of the things being in a town of Charters means there's a great symbiotic relationship, and I'll take us through more of that as we go forward. So we've invested substantial funds at Charters Towers. In December 2020, upgraded our gold resources, and now they're reaching just on 14 million ounces of contained gold at Charters. And I'll touch base a little bit more on that in the slides as well. Moving on. So we've done a lot of trial mining. So this particular project, we've not only obtained the mineral rights by a little bit of interesting happenstance a few decades back where BHP and Homestake at the time held the rights over the whole gold field. Then there was a little glimpse, as one might say, they blinked, and we stepped in and were able to acquire the greater part of the central goldfield that had historically produced 6.6 million ounces of gold. So our trial mining, we established at Charters Tower. So this is the central site here, which is only 2 kilometres from the post office. And that decline goes down. Here's an underground view of that decline. It's about 4.5 by 4.5. We've got major buildings established on the surface, our major core yard here. So our site here is where we've done all our trial mining and worked out how to work in harmony with the local community at Charters Towers. And as the points on the left show, we're currently in a financing stage to actually bring the mine into full-scale commercial production. The mineralisation ore bodies at Charters Towers are principally the major ones east-west. And as we can see on here, these light brown areas, that's where the past 6.6 million ounces at a quite incredible average grade of 38 grams to the tonne came from. So it's where we're working is extensions of the reef systems, along strike and down dip. So this shows the extent of the depths of drilling, but most of the area we'll be starting our early mining on is in the above 350 metre vertical depth. Our existing underground decline that was put in as part of the trial mining and to get the permits to operate at Charters Towers under the town, that's down just on 200 metres deep. So when we commence our mining, we will bring it into production in less than 12 months. The gold deposit is really well understood, especially by the consultants that have done the work for us over very many years. So this ore body, it's not something that's just a piece of paper or a computer system that's had some analysis done. There's been a bit of drilling done, and people have then made a lot of assessments as to what it's like to be underground. This goldfield was historically mined underground. It is an underground system. And so through our trial mining phases, we undertook through the noughts and the early part of the teens, gave first-hand real-world experience of mining this particular ore body. So this image to the left here, that's one of the reefs, what they look like underground. And this image represents a width of probably about 1 metre to 1.5 metres in width. So the mineralisation is very high grade. It's very visual. So from a mining perspective, when they're putting in the level drives prior to doing the stoping and ore extraction, it's very easy to see what is the mineralisation and the good parts. So very well understood geology from historic, from detailed drilling, over 1,550 significant intersections from our 358 kilometres of drilling. So there's been a huge amount of modern data collected in determining the size of the gold deposit and the 14 million ounces at an average grade of 14 grams to the tonne. And all this technical information on the actual deposit is in the 2020 Mineral Resources and Ore Reserves report that was put out in December of 2020. And all these images are actually out of that very, very detailed and nearly 200 pages thick technical document. So it's an orogenic source, and it sounds like a bit of a big weird word, but essentially it just means that the mineralisation has come up from great depth. It's not been folded or faulted, it's flowed up, and it is the same style of origin of mineralisation in gold as is the case at the giant Kalgoorlie goldfield in Western Australia. So we are not exploring, wandering around Queensland looking for a deposit. We have a deposit. We spent a lot of years to define the deposit, to then undertake trial mining because it's in a town. So we were effectively leaders in items that were recently spoken about to do with ESG, because we've been in a community. We had to genuinely earn their trust and understanding of us and also our mining methods, and that all their concerns and interests would be brought into account. This image on the left, which again is another piece of mineralisation from actually sampled by us underground. And as you can see there, the grades vary a lot. So the horizontal line is how they're actually sampled underground. And then the diagonal line shows what that means as in a true width at right angles to the ore body, 2 metres at 75 grams to the tonne. So their historic grades averaged over 1 ounce to the tonne. They did mine 2 ounces to the tonne. So the mineralisation then and today is unchanged. Our infrastructure at Charters Towers is quite extensive. So while we have about 175 square kilometres, it's fair to say that the really, really valuable part is probably about 20 square kilometres in size. So on this image at the top, should be the top right of your screen, shows that the township here, our mine just on the edge of the town, and this is the area where all the past production came from, was out of this very area here. So as we can see, they've got, housing, schools, grid electricity, state highway, seal roads. So it's one of the rare mines where we actually have bitumen roads to the door. And when people are working for us, so the town's about 8,500 people, a wonderful community, that they go to work and it takes them a few minutes to get to work. It's not some remote site. So you tend to get a really good quality of people. It's not just the young guys wanting the big bucks and chasing them. It's people that have their families. So they come and work in the mine and they go home every day, just like you would if you're working in the CBD of a city. The water that is contained in the old mines, we recycle that where our process plant's going to be. We did have an old process plant that we sold off a few years ago. And now we're going to build a really modern 2021 processing plant that will have no cyanide. It is all just using very, very high-tech sorting equipment. So, society's moved on. They want things done in an environmentally friendly way. And we've been working for many, many years to actually research and understand how that can be done. It's a little bit like how we operate in the town. Our surface area we use for the main site that's going to be all the men and materials go down and come up from, it's less than 2 hectares. There's no mines that are less than 2 hectares. Ours will be that on the surface, and we've been doing it, and that's how we earned the trust of the community. So the main water supply, the Burdekin River here, we're about 80 to 90 metres vertically above that, so flooding is never an issue. This shows one of the trucks that was hauling our ore when we were processing previously. Main grid electricity railway line runs all the way from the Isa, all the way out Mount Isa into Townsville, and a huge number of goods move there. Then the town actually has an airport that was built in during the Second World War, and so it's a first-class airport, although we don't have scheduled flights there at this time. So when we talk about working with the town and ESG issues, here's an image taken some years back, and this is us. Charters Towers Gold is our wholly owned subsidiary that we operated Charters Towers through. And here's on what was one of the country music festival days. And this is some of our gear, big drilling machines on the back of this truck, big, huge, 50-ton loaders and machinery with our people parading through the town. So this is all during our trial mining period, where we are such an integral part of the community. They know and understand and trust us as a company that we've shown we do the right thing by the community. And the great benefit is everyone benefits. So the town is the great benefactor from our operations. That's where the people's money gets spent. They go home there, they buy their home, rent their home. And so this symbiotic relationship, it's truly quite unique, and I do not believe there is anything like it anywhere in Australia and possibly in the world. So this strong community connection means that it's of a benefit to the mine. We can adapt and use the community infrastructure, and it then benefits the town because most of the commercial benefits flows directly into the community and the people that live there. So where are we at? So at this stage, the mine, we've been through the exploration, getting the tenure granted, doing the evaluation and the development stage. So the trial mining's completed. All the unknowns are now known. So we are going through the commercial production stage. So we're currently going through a financing phase to raise the capital to build the mine and bring it into full-scale commercial production. And as it's been set out in technical report, the capital requirement's about $100 million. And we believe we will have that completed and be able to move into commercial production. This image here at top is actually pouring gold bars up at Charters Towers. Again, it's us. And here's another sample of the underground decline. Very good rock, very strong rock, and therefore a great place to be mining. Historically, the hard granite was largely a nightmare to mine from an unmechanised perspective. Then, so just to sum up where we are, we've got a very, very large gold deposit. It's been defined and published in the report in 2020. So the goldfield is a proven giant. It's got a big history, a big mining history. Then there was a big hiatus, and then our trial mining, and then another little hiatus from going through the funding process. And we believe we will be back mining there very, very soon. And the project it's got its environmental permits, its mining rights. It literally is, we can start tomorrow on site at Charters Towers. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lynch, for this insightful presentation. And I'm sure our audience really enjoyed your business presentation today. And while appetite for gold by investors is under the spotlight, we hope that Citigold achieves its aim to 300,000 plus ounces per annum ultra low cost gold producers in the next 5 years and is able to return substantial profits to its shareholders. Okay, so we have some questions in the Q&A chat box for you. Let me read them. So the first question is by Ted. So Ted is asking that how is Citigold placed among other gold mining and exploration companies to create shareholder value?
A very good question. I believe so. We are just focused on this deposit at Charters Towers. And as we said in our mission statement, our plan is to return the profits to shareholders. We're not going around trying to buy up a whole bunch of mines. So the go-forward cash flows show that, and reported in the 2020 technical report, operating costs will be around $500, 550 Aussie, so about 400 US per ounce. So there can be very, very substantial cash surpluses. And as we state, they're to be returned to shareholders. So as in a potential for growth in our recognised value at the moment, I believe there is a very, very substantial upside for our shareholders.
Certainly. And we have another question that's by Nick. Nick is asking that what is your mid to long-term view on gold prices? And are we going to see another such price rally of 2020 in near future?
Well, gold is an asset and it also works like a currency. It actually trades very much like, for example, the US dollar. So gold has stood the test of time, and the world at the moment has got a lot of financial problems, debts getting created, it seems almost monthly, by the trillion around the world. So gold has been a store of value since time immortal. So going forward, gold has the potential, and some other analysts and that have said that it should go to 5,000 US per ounce over time. So where we are right now, there is a lot of money to be made from our mining operations, and therefore going forward, if the price is higher, that just means there's more money should flow to our shareholders.
Certainly, I totally agree that gold is a cash which has been there for years and years. We all have been investing in gold. So that's a readily available cash at any point of time and at any time of crisis. With that, I'm going to ask you a third question, which is by Robert. Robert is asking that what will be the split of $100 million capital cost between equity and debt? What is the anticipated timing?
All right, well, that question's a little tricky because I can only go as far as what we've stated publicly. So we've not stated publicly that any component of the money will be raised from equity, and therefore the main avenues that we would have been looking at is joint ventures, where a party comes in, we share the asset, and they bring the money to complete the development, or a loan, which means that as Citigold shareholders get to retain 100%, potentially 100% of the asset, or through a forward sale of gold. So it's been done where gold can be forward sold, and we've done a tiny little bit of this in the past just to test it, so that we give a discount and then they get their gold delivered over the next 2 to 3 years. Or it can be a combination of any one of those or three. So I personally believe as a shareholder that the greatest benefit is to do the funding through joint venture, forward sale of gold and or loan, and therefore that gate gives the greatest benefit to our shareholder base going forward.
Thank you, Mark. Could you please share some of any closing notes, some takeaway notes?
Just want to say that, you know, what Brian and K2 Fly are doing, it's such an important part. And I think as that goes more, I think there'll be quite a big evolution in mining and the way it's done. There's going to be a lot more effort put into doing things, you know, smarter. There's been huge changes in technology over the last, 10 years, especially. So the work was going on before, it's starting to get traction. So, you know, the efforts, what he's doing and, you know, really trying to make people track what they do and how they do it, you know, it's a very, very important thing to do. And it's a little bit like in mining and gold, there's a big effort by the World Gold Council to make sure that gold is mined in a socially responsible way, that people aren't being exploited, that it's not being used for the wrong reasons. But, you know, there's a few countries in the world that, you know, for example, India and China, it's almost part of their culture going back a long way. And as a result, I think more and more of the world will start to engage with gold because it seemed to be something reliable for the future. And also it's portable, you know, real estate, many of these assets, they're all very good. But, you know, I personally believe that, you know, there's always a niche for things that are a little bit more portable. So, you know, our mining, what we do in Australia, everything has to be done in this country, you know, to what you call totally first world standards. Were very, very highly regulated, whether it's on the corporate side, the mining side, or the health and safety side and the environment side. So people, you know, getting involved in mining in Australia know that it's they can have a lot of confidence in it, and the likes of what, you know, Brian and K2 are doing just further ensures and makes it known to people as to, you know, it's a great place to be mining in.
We have a couple of questions for you as well. So let's begin with Sibase's questions. I'm just going to club two questions into one and just make it easier for you. So Sibases is saying that it is a very insightful talk about Citigold. And the first part of the question is that how are you planning for innovation in your mine site? While the second part of the question is that how quickly Citigold will produce 300,000 ounces of gold per annum?
All right, both good questions. So we've been researching for on and off the last 10 years. And that's what I've mentioned, you know, part people can see on my profile. I've travelled to just about every country and I've been down so many mines in the world just to really understand what everyone else is doing. And in looking at, especially in the civil game, they're doing some really interesting things that's not done in mining that we can bring in. So we really want to be a smart mine, and we've got a stated goal of going to fully autonomous mining over time. So the project I mentioned, it takes about a year once the fundings are in place to bring it into production. And under our business model, we've got this 5-year time span to get to that 300,000 ounces a year of production. But a lot of that was originally set when the gold price was, under $1,000 US. So it's highly likely that because we're going to internally spin off a hell of a lot more cash than what was originally budgeted for, with the increased prices, that we're likely to see, a move into that scale of production a lot quicker. So the work we've got to do, we've got a very modern processing plant we want to build, and then it's just a matter of the time it takes to put the tunnels in underground and get sufficient tunnels so that we can extract the tonnages and bring them to the surface for processing. So yeah, we want to engage the two, is be a very, very, internally we've sometimes said that we want to be a technology company going mining rather than a mining company trying to engage with tech. And that's what's really brought about a huge change in our thinking about going about things. In other words, you look at, what do we want to do? We want to break this rock. We want to get it to the surface. We want to then reduce it. We want to then get the valuable gold out of it. How would we go about that if we, rather than just thinking about how everyone else goes about it, how might we go about it? And that's where we've come up with this very small footprint, no tailings dam approach to mining, and that all our surplus products, all the rock we bring up, it's planned to have another use. So we want to see the repurposing of all the materials we use back into some other part of the local community or the broader state community. So yeah, we spent a lot of years and a lot of thought so that this can happen, and it could be, maybe it'll be the world's first full 360 recyclable mine of everything that's input is used to a productive output, rather than leaving waste piles around all over the world to be dealt with at a future stage.
So Robert has actually a really interesting question. So Robert is asking that in the last updates, the company has mentioned the sample number 74 and its significant gold, silver, and base metal potential. So what could be inferred from these assay results?
Yes, certainly an interesting question. So what is the Charters Towers? For probably the last 20 years, a lot of the work we've been doing, it's all been based around what we knew at the time, where the outcrops of the reefs were, the drilling we'd done. And so you tend to keep looking deeper and deeper into what you already know. So as what it was said in 2020, we're starting to do an exploration program. It'd almost call that if you knew nothing, what would you go and do to find out what's there? So, and on this very basic exploration program is what it's turned up is the potential for additional reefs out in front of those that we know currently exist, due to where the samples were picked up and where the known outcrops are. And the second thing is a completely different style of mineralisation, which is quite close to, relatively close to the Warrior gold deposit, but they're a little bit more as a base metal genesis style of mineralisation. So Charters Towers, we've really never looked for that. So it's interesting when you get back to basics sometimes and you start looking with a fresh set of eyes, data comes up, think, hey, there's even more things there than we imagined. So we will be looking to do another, further programs, and then so have that running along in parallel to, shall we say, a mining program. And it could be quite interesting what ultimately turns up.
Okay, there are a lot of questions. Let me take up this last one question for you and for all our audience's questions we have been unable to answer. We will try and send you the answers over email, and we will try and have them answered from our speakers. Okay, so Mark, just one last final question is by Mark. Mark says, the recently concluded sampling program indicates gold mineralization towards the north of Charters Towers. How significant is the potential for gold in this area given, and how CTO plans to pursue the opportunity in the underexplored areas.
Right, well, I can only talk about what we've publicly said in some part of our large volumes of data we've published over time. So the reefs at Charters Towers, that was a crustal scale mineralisation event. So there was this huge compression of the granite that took place, and it failed on multi-kilometre deep fractures. So it's not folding, faulting or shearing. So it was just the failing of the granite, a bit like granite, about 50% silica, so it broke as a brittle object would. So where the old mining is where people tend to keep looking further for. But as we said, with this fresh program to the north, so the reefs at Charters Towers are sub-parallel reefs. So it's quite logical there can be further reefs to the north of the known main system, just as. So there's a lot of sub-parallel reefs behind the central, out to Warrior. They occur about every half kilometre to 1 kilometre distance. So looking out in front of what was believed to be the northern boundary of the reefs, it's very realistic and in keeping with the actual method that the mineralisation was formed. So at the moment, it would be we need to do another pass of exploration, again, very, very basic level, to gain additional data around the areas that have shown to be interesting. And then, depending on the outcome of that, maybe there's some drilling, there's the usual kit of exploration things. So keep in mind, we already have a huge gold deposit and we want to unlock the value in that. So it's probably fair to say that 90% of our effort is going to be on what we getting into production and starting to get returns for our shareholders. But there will be a bit that is looking at, hey, is this thing even bigger than what we currently already know?
On behalf of Kalkine Media, I would like to extend my gratitude towards you for addressing our audience with such meaningful insights and answering their questions and queries, like I said, with so much of patience and great analysis. I would also like to thank our wonderful audience for attending this webinar. I hope that you found this session informative and have a good day.